This is not a really aggressive animal.
And I reached back in there because I was like, 15 and crazy, and I pulled out the bull snake, and it came out hissing and biting and pissed.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Terraform Homestead. This week we are talking about rattlesnakes and how to keep yourself, your loved ones, your pets safe, and hopefully to kind of inspire y'all to accept our reptilian neighbors, because if you are going to be living off-grid in really most of the United States, but especially here in the Sonoran Desert, rattlesnakes are your neighbors, and we need to get along with them and realize their utility and also how to stay safe. So this week we were very, very fortunate in having a venomous snake expert who has been handling snakes for over 20 years. He talked with our group for over 2 hours on how to keep yourself safe, the good deterrence, the bad deterrence, how to keep your pet safe, how to keep your kids safe, the value that rattlesnakes add to this ecosystem and this environment, along with a bunch of other helpful advice. We've condensed that down to about a 20-minute clip for you guys to get all the best information, and I hope it is helpful for you guys. With that, let's get into it.
Out here in this area, these are probably the biggest predator of the rodent population. These and the Sonoran gopher snakes are really going to do a number on any of the rodents.
How often do they reproduce?
Once a year, these guys will usually come out of hibernation, try to fatten up and mate. They have a really cool courtship display. The males will size each other up when there's a female present, and they'll wrestle, just kind of one pushing the other one down until one of them's like, okay, you won. And that usually stimulates the female to want to breed. Now, in hibernation, snake species don't really care. If it's a really nice den and the temperature's right, you'll have snakes that might eat other snakes sleeping with other snakes, because they're in hibernation and they're not trying to eat anything. Sometimes people have found western diamondbacks out in the desert in the middle of winter, almost half frozen, and they're active. You can't trust any. Nature doesn't have strict rules on this kind of thing.
Is it possible that a snake would hibernate in my house?
Yes. More likely that it would hibernate under your house, though.
In, I guess, southern Arizona, what would be their typical hibernation versus active period?
I think late October they'll start to disappear from the landscape, and they will probably come out around May.
Okay.
I wouldn't trust that. If it's been a warm spell, snakes will sometimes come out.
Sure. But if it's consistently below freezing at night,
Generally you will not see them.
okay.
And these things are incredibly accurate. They have, the forked tongue brings particles from the air to the Jacobson's organ inside their mouth, which analyzes it. So they can smell everything around them more acutely than most animals. Some of them actually have pretty good vision too. And so this snake is never confused that you're a mammal. It knows what you are. Even if it's calm and it didn't decide to bite you, it doesn't think you're like furniture or something. Most of them, when you first come across them, are gonna freeze and be motionless. They don't want to rattle, they don't want to do anything. They're hoping their camouflage worked, and you'll keep on going. The second stage is really to get into a defensive position and alert you with the rattle, and even then they'll usually kind of scoot sideways in striking position away from you.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is when you're in a high desert region or an area like this where there's not really any trees or cover, you're casting a shadow. And when you see that snake and that snake gets freaked out and scared, it might go right at your shadow thinking there's cover and safety there, and you're thinking it's chasing you. Some people milk venomous snakes for the anti-venom production. Copperhead venom they're producing a medicine called contortricin out of copperhead venom to treat breast cancer. Malayan pit viper venom is where most of our anticoagulant medications come from.
Out here, like there's so many holes in the ground, and I don't know. Like I'm like, are you a snake living there?
Is
or-
that a rat hole or a snake hole?
Yeah. Like,
If you can see a snake shed going into the hole, there's really likely to be a snake in there. I mean, when
There's
I was
a whole
around
bunch.
15 in central Texas, I saw a snake shed going into a hole. And I looked at it and it was a bull snake. I could tell by the pattern and the keeled scales. And so I stick my hand in there and I pull out a coach whip. Now this is in the winter, the coach whip is hibernating. It came out like a wet noodle. Didn't move. I stick it in a pillowcase. I reach in there and I grab onto a Western Diamondback. And I could tell because their body's a little bit more rounded and their keels are there. Like a bull snake has more of a square muscular body. That rattlesnake's more rounded. And I thought in that second, like, oh shit, I think it's still in hibernation. I pulled it out and it was. I stuck it in a snake bucket. And I reached back in there because I was like, 15 and crazy. And I pulled out the bull snake and it came out hissing and biting and pissed. Like,
What I've kind of noticed is like you have the eye to be able to see like
Yeah.
tracks and where they were, I guess. What do you look for to be like, okay, this was a snake was here, so I can now be more vigilant in this area?
I look for critical habitat.
Okay, what would that be?
So, not so much in the desert because it's so hot.
Right.
But in other areas, when I see a bunch of roofing tin and discarded construction material and stuff like that piled up, boards, lumber, I've got a greater than a 50-50 chance there's a snake in that pile. Here, a lot of times that stuff just gets too hot. But that's one thing. Mice, droppings, anything that's going to bring in rodents is going to bring in snakes. So like when I'm in an area looking for new species, I really don't have too much of a problem knocking on the guy's door that's a scrapper
junkyard.
and everything and be like, hey look, can I look for venomous snakes on your land? Like,
So kind of, I guess, best advice for people that don't want them necessarily on their front porch is manage the rodent population, and that'll help manage the snake population.
if you can, keeping up as much cover off the ground really does help. That's what we recommend on all the snake ID chat groups that I'm on. One thing that you can tell the Mojave, and as a Mojave rattlesnake, it's more found in the Sonoran deserts. This snake ranges from extreme southwest Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, into California. It has a little bit of a darker patch on its snout. They're highly variable, not all of them do. But it has bigger head scales in between its ocular eye scales. And that's where it differs from a Western Diamondback.
so that snake will start and inject venom. Does that snake also do the wrapping?
Usually, well, no, they don't constrict prey at all. When it's a prey item, they want to bite it real quick and get away because they're delicate. And a flailing rat that's fighting for its life might really screw up that snake. Maybe even disfigure it so bad it dies.
Is that why people?
But see, it's not a very aggressive animal. Now you can start to see a little bit of a coil, but it just wants to get away from my shirt.
Another myth that so many people believe is that a newborn snake is so much more dangerous. Well, their venom is the same venom, and in the case of a large rattlesnake species that gets 4.5, 5.5, 6 foot long, which these in the Western Diamondback do get, well, a 4 to 6 inch baby rattlesnake might barely have a couple drops of venom in it completely. And they learn to regulate their venom very quickly. So I'd rather get bit by a really small rattlesnake than a very large one, because a large one, if it wants to inject and get you out of its way, it's going to put in more venom than that baby has. The leading cause of snake bite in the United States, 1 is accidentally stepping on them, 2 is killing them and messing with them.
So, but why do they say in the head? Is that like the
That
I mean, I'm
snake
not
can
gonna do
actually
that.
bite and inject venom with its head cut off.
That's what I thought.
And that is true. It sounds fantastical, but it's they can do that.
They can release venom even when the head isn't attached.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is not a really aggressive animal. This animal wants to just defend itself. It can strike between half and 2/3 of its body length. So a snake that size can bite you from about that far away. And it can go from striking position to injecting venom and pulling back faster than you can blink. So you were saying if you were to be bitten by a rattlesnake, seek immediate emergency treatment.
Okay.
If the pain's too intolerable, call an ambulance. You probably got 6 to 8 hours or so before the swelling gets so intense that your skin starts to split, things like that start happening. The faster you get to the hospital, the better.
Right.
Most rattlesnakes and most venomous snakes in the United States are not going to kill you, as long as you make it to the hospital within a day or so, but really as soon as you can. This rattlesnake is the Mojave rattlesnake. This is Crotalus scutellatus. This particular snake has a combination of hemotoxins and neurotoxins. So the hemotoxins are attacking your muscle tissues and they're just breaking things down. And the neurotoxins are going to start affecting your brain activity, leading to like loss of breathing, heart attack, different cardiac arrest, different things like that. If you ever get bit by a snake, often they'll give a dry bite where they don't inject venom because they're trying to hold their venom for prey. They only ever strike in, eating prey or out of self-defense as a last resort. But you should always immediately go to the hospital anyways, or at least call emergency services. You're supposed to try to remain calm. Snake bites are going to be incredibly painful. So I don't know how many people could stay calm in that kind of situation. The thing I love about a snake hook is you can literally flip over anything with this thing. I can flip over that rock, I can flip over a log. You don't have to mess with the snakes to have a snake hook. Mostly, a snake hook for a novice person is a great tool to keep a rattlesnake away from you. You don't have to try to pick it up. If you want to, get a large trash can or something and try to flip into that. Use the hook to pick the lid up, then secure the lid.
So it looks like you've got the DIY snake hook. Would you be open to going through how people can make that easy?
Absolutely. If you find any old golf club, you can get a metal dowel rod from a Home Depot, and I bend it around a piece of pipe to make the hook. You can round this down a little bit. Mine's not very sharp, so I didn't. And I use JB Weld, and I can make 2 hooks out of 1 dowel rod and 1 pack of JB Weld, and this thing will pick up like logs. I can flip logs and rocks over, but they're great snake hooks, and you could always go and buy one too for like 40-50 bucks, but you can practically make one for free. I like this length because I want to err on the side of caution, and I actually deal with some pretty big snakes. I caught a fer-de-lance in Mexico with this hook. And I have, even on this trip, I scooped up a Western Diamondback out of the road that was probably 5.5 foot. Now you can say, oh, that rattlesnake over there, that snake is really dangerous. Well, that snake isn't dangerous until you go messing with it.
Yeah.
They're not out to get people. The best thing to do when you see a rattlesnake is to stop and look around you, because just because you see one doesn't mean there's not another 1 or 2 right behind you. And then slowly move away and go around it. The suction things are no good. Snake be gone is
absolutely worthless. It's like
What's
most
that?
of it's a rat killer.
That's like a poison that you would put around your perimeter?
Yeah, they sell various things that are supposed to keep snakes away, and they don't work. We get people that take photos of the rattlesnake coiled up to their bag of snake be gone in their shed.
If you have hoses and water spigots in your yard, the best deterrent for a venomous snake is to spray it with a hose from a distance. They're cold-blooded, so they don't like the temperature shock, and they'll usually run away from it.
In your case, where you do have a rattlesnake and you might not have hoses everywhere, and it might be in a high traffic area, and that becomes a problem,
Yeah.
I would try a good super soaker. Get
Yeah.
one of the big barreled ones, because I think that'll work for you.
Do you have advice for people with kids and people with pets? Because I think that's the two biggest things that
I
people
think-
freak out about.
Send your dog to a rattlesnake training program.
Mm.
It's worth the money.
Yeah.
One snake bite to your dog, if it doesn't kill him, is going to cost more than that training.
Yeah.
And the kids, I like to go out and walk the area really good, and I look in all the bushes and stuff like that, and keep them close. Now, early morning, and in particularly late evening, right around sundown, is like snake 30, and a lot of snakes like to come out at that time.
Okay.
And then I'd be, really cautious with children running around at that time. At nighttime, be really cautious because they're hunting, and you
Okay.
don't want to step on one. So I would always make noise, shuffle your feet, have a flashlight if you can. Get a golf club or a snake hook and move stuff out of your way if you can't see where you're going to put your feet.
Yeah.
They can become habituated to people pretty quick too.
Rattlesnakes, oral snakes.
Any reptiles. If you're not a threat to them and and they're not being harassed or nothing,
So I have
they'll hang around.
So like with my my rattlesnake, like I'm learning about it, and let's say I choose to not do anything about it, or like it just ends up being there because what I have done, like is it used to me or is it used to people? Because like my concern is like if I have someone come over or people come over that the snake isn't used to, or is it just used to all people?
I would never trust that snake not to bite someone if they stepped on it or messed with it.
So just tell people there's a rattlesnake living there, so they know.
Yeah, and
I mean,
even if
that's-
you
that's
have
a
to, make
general-
sure you go out and walk the yard and be like,
If I wanted to try and relocate the rattlesnake back by me, if I have a leather jacket, would that be helpful?
no,
No?
it'll bite right through it.
Okay.
If you have access to a garden hose, which here you have a hard time with that, that's about your best deterrent. If you were to see one in your yard and you had a hose and you just sprayed it and you chased it out of your yard with that hose at a safe distance, every time, it's not going to take but a couple times where that rattlesnake's, man, I got to move. This guy's crazy.
Okay.
I know there's guys in your area that do relocations too. And if it comes to something like you have a snake in your house, it's a good idea to look up your herpetologist, local reptile nerds.
Yeah.
Most of us do free relocations. There's a lot of us.
Okay, so here is the road that we caught the Mojave rattlesnake on last night. We did mark the location on Google Maps with a pin. So this is exactly where the snake was found. It was headed this direction in the center of the lane last night with a lot of traffic going through. It's really important for us to release this snake in its home territory, in the direction off the road where it was found. I'm actually going to go ahead and cross this fence, and I'm going to release the snake, maybe handle him just a little bit. Hopefully I can coax it to head away from the road. And there he goes. I think at this point the snake will at least know where he's at.
Might as well pick up the trash on the side of the road while we're at it.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It was a super educational experience to have Chris out here teaching and sharing his knowledge and love of snakes and venomous snakes and reptiles. I will be linking all of the resources that I know of that I can find for rattlesnake removal, rattlesnake safety, some gear, things like that, down in the description below. Prevention is the best measure, so if you can keep mice away from your property, prevent the snakes. If you enjoyed this video, we've got another snake related video that is very interesting coming up next week, so be sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got a bunch more videos on this channel that I think you will enjoy if you're into the homesteading off-grid living situation. So got those queued up for you right now. Go check them out. Thank you guys for watching, and go build something cool.